Hello again. This is the third video in the series on decimals, and in this video we look at multiplication of decimals. Okay, let's start. Now the first thing that I want you to think about when we look at decimals and multiplication is multiplication by the number 10 or multiples of 10. And this is one of the magic things about 10 and multiples of 10 and its effect on numbers with different sorts of functions. But if we just look at the number 10 and we multiply that by any number, one of the things that you will see is that all you're doing is adding a 0 onto the end. So for example, if I have the number 9 and I multiply it by 10, then the number is 90. So if you're doing the times table and you're doing your 10 times table, you know that the answers from 9 times 1 down to 9 times 9, it's just adding the 0 to the end of the number that you're multiplying by 10. And even when you go into 10 times 10 is 100, 10 11, 110, 10 12, 120. So all it is just adding a 0 onto the end of the number. So when you're saying the 10 times table, it's one of the easiest ones to learn because all you're doing is adding a 0 onto the end of the number. Even if you were to write a very big number like 13,438, if you multiply, that's a comma, that's not a decimal. If you multiply that times 10, all you will get is an answer with a 0 on the end. So all you're doing is adding a 0. Now the reason I wanted you to think about this idea was if you have a number that involves decimals, so 9.1. What happens with the number 9, where it's 9.0, like we don't write the 0.0 because in almost all cases, this 0 is insignificant. So waste of ink, we don't put this decimal point, nor this 0, in most cases. We do it in special cases, which I'll explain later. But in most cases, the 0 sits there. Now, what happens when you multiply it by 10 is that this decimal place moves one place over to the right to make the number bigger. So what it does is then it gives you the answer 90. Because once you move the decimal place, it becomes 90.0. But again, like I said, we normally don't show this decimal point and the 0 because they're not significant in most cases. So the answer you're left with that you normally would write down is 90. Exactly like the top here, right? So all that's happened is the decimal point has moved one spot over to the right. Now, if you were to think of the number 9.1, as I've written up here, and if you multiply that by 10, the exact same thing happens. If you multiply by 10, the decimal point moves one place over to the right. And if it's hard to remember whether it's moving left or right, remember if you're multiplying by a number bigger than 1, then your answer will be bigger or greater than the number you started out with. So you look at the answer, is it bigger than the number you started out with? Then it's likely you went in the right direction. If it's smaller, then you went in the wrong direction. So this moves the decimal place over 1 to the right, so that it comes after the 1, the number 1. And so the answer becomes 91. Again, it's technically there's a 0 here, because that decimal place is moved over. But like I said, because it's not significant, we don't show it. We know it's there, we just don't show it. Okay, so now what happens if we multiply by a multiple of 10 that isn't 10? So say for example 100. So look at what happens to the decimal point. Now, there's zeros everywhere. Like I said before, we don't show the zeros are there because they're not significant. There are zeros on this side that we don't show because it doesn't make sense to show it, although they're there. They're placeholders. They wait till they become important, and then they show themselves. But that doesn't mean they've gone away. They're there the whole time. Just like the zeros on this side. So zeros on this side are here, zeros on this side. But we don't show them until they become important. Okay? So you have the 9.1 times 100. If it's by 100, you've got two zeros there. With 10, just one, so the decimal place moved once. Here you've got two zeros. The decimal place will move 2 times now. So it'll move after the 1 and then again. After a 0 that is there, but that we don't normally show. So the answer then becomes 910. Did you get that? So it moves after the 1 and after the 0, which is there the whole time except that we didn't show it before because it was not significant. Now it's significant because this 0 is very important. Without the 0, the number is 91. There's a very big difference between 91 and 910. Very different numbers. Big difference in the values. So this 10, this 0 is significant in this case, so we show it. Like I said before in the case of 91, now the decimal place sits on this side, and of course there are zeros on this side, hundreds of them, millions of them. But we don't show them because they're not important in this case. So the answer is 910. Okay? What if we were to quickly work through just a few other examples? Okay, so what if we had 2031.3 times 10? Is that number dark enough? Okay, 2031.3. If you were to multiply it by 10, 1 0 here, the number in front, of course, is 1. This simple rule works if the number in front is 1. So it's a multiple of 10, but the number in front is 1. If it's 2, then you've got to also multiply it by 2, as well as move the decimal place. But we're not doing that in this case. We're just looking at the simple rule of times 10, times 100, times 1,000. So all you're doing is moving the decimal places according to the number of zeros. 1 0 here, 1 place. So the new place the decimal point will be is over here. If you rewrite the number, 2031, instead of 0.3, it now becomes 3. Right? So now it's, instead of 2031.03, it now becomes 20,313. What about 414 times 414.4 times 100? Now we're moving the decimal place 2 times, so 1 to after the 4 and 1 again after another 0 that's there but that we don't show unless it's significant. And now it's significant. So 414, we've moved the 4 and the 0. So the decimal places moved 2 times to accommodate that 4 and now the 0. So the answer is now 41,440 because the decimal places moved 2 places because of the 2 zeros on this one. Let's do our last one before we tackle some problems. For example, if you have 318.004 times 100 equals. Now this 318.004 times 100, you're multiplying by 100 with 2 zeros here. You're moving the decimal place 2 places to the right. 1 across the first 0 and around the second 0. And now it's just before the 4. So 318.00.4. So the decimal place is now there between the 0 and the 4. 1, 2, between the 0 and the 4. Okay, so even though this video is intended as a video on multiplication, the earlier concept that was explained, multiplying by 10, by 100, but using the same same concept to multiply by bigger multiples of 10. So multiply by 1,000, it's the same thing. Now the flip side of that is dividing by 10, 100, or 1,000. Okay, I want to show you 3 or 4 examples. 4 examples, and these 4 examples are intended to illustrate the exact same idea as I showed with multiplication. So 303.13 divide by 10. Now remember, when we did multiplication, we moved the decimal place this way to make the number bigger. But with division, you have to move it in the opposite direction to make it smaller. Because if you're dividing a number, then you are, same thing as cutting, right? So you're cutting into 10 pieces, 10 equal pieces, 10 equal portions. It has to go smaller. So it goes towards the left. 1 0, 1 place. Okay? All right. So your answer will then be 30.313. Okay. All right. Now, show you another example. 625.2 divided by 100. Again, the decimal place will move to the left to make this starting number smaller because you're dividing, you're cutting. So 2 zeros, it'll move 2 places. 1, 2. So this will now be its place. The answer will be 6.252. Right? Okay, the third example, 91.6 divide by 10. Again, the decimal place is moving to the left towards the start of the number to make the number smaller. 1 place only. So 9.16. And then the last example I have is 1. Switch to a different one. 1031.2 divide by 1,000. Okay, 1,000 has 3 zeros, so you will move it to the left to make the number smaller, 3 places. And now this is where the decimal place will rest, between the 1 and the 0. 1.0312. Remember, you've still got to write all these numbers down. Thank you. First question out of activity 21 is, that. I'll give you time now to answer the question. Did you get it? Okay. Times 10, 1 0, so it moves this direction, 1 point to its new place there. So the answer is 0.5. Did you get that? Okay. Second question is 100 times 1.98 equals. I'll give you time to answer the question now. Did you get it? Okay. The answer is 2 zeros, so we move the decimal place 2 places. 1, 2. So now it becomes 198. Did you get that? Okay. Number 3. Zero point 38 divide by 100. Okay, so first thing is it's in an opposite direction to that. So it goes, since it's divide, it should move to make this number smaller. So, right, 2 places over that side becomes 0.0 0.038. Number 4. Okay. 45.8 divide by 100 is equal to, I'll give you time now to answer the question. Did you get it? Okay. 2 places, so it'll hop 1, 2. Yeah, because it has 2 zeros. So moving towards the left. So the answer is sorry, 0, it's a bit messy, 0.458. Did you get that? Okay. Number 5, 10 times 24.7 is equal to 10. You answered it? Okay. So it moves in this direction because it's times to make the number bigger. Only 1 place, sorry. 2, 4, 7. Number 6, 100 times 4.90. 2 decimal places, 2 zeros, sorry. So I'll let you solve it now. Did you get it? Okay. 2 decimal place, two movements by the decimal point. So it's now 490. Now the decimal point is there with more zeros, but of course, like I explained before, we do not show that. Okay. Number 7. 237.89 divide by 10. Divide. Careful, it's divide. I'll let you solve it now. Did you get it? Okay, divide. It will move to the left to make the number smaller. The decimal place will now be between the 3 and the 7. So 23.789. Did you get that? Okay. 8. 34.9 divided by 100. I give you time to solve it now. Did you get it? Okay. Just like number 7, we're dividing, so the number has to come down, has to reduce. So divide by 100, it'll move two places, the decimal point. So it's going to go that way to the left. So it'll be before the 3. So now it'll be 0, because we have to have that placeholder. 3, 4, 9. All right, and you solved all of them.